Can we start? Good afternoon, everybody. Let me say Happy New Year to all of us. This is the first edition of this webinar we are having. God, this is the fourth edition we are having. The program is a special one put in place by the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, Professor Abayomi Igbabu, to get stakeholders more information and get them to know what we are trying to do in the digitalization of education in Ogun State. A lot of issue has been discussed, the past questions has been asked, but we still believe that there are still some gray area that we need to throw light onto. One of the areas that we have identified is the issue of students having challenges in transfer as a result of the services or the details of the OGSERA platform. So this afternoon, we have in the house, once again, our leader, our mentor, the Honorable Commissioner for Education, Science and Technology, Professor Abayomi Igbabu. He will be speaking to us on the topic we call Inter-School Transfer for Private Schools on OGSERA Digital Platform. Inter-School Transfer for Private Schools on OGSERA Digital Platform. We might begin to wonder, why do we need to bring this topic on board? There are questions and issues being raised by private schools that some of their students have not been able to transit from one school to the other, either within private school or from private to public. So this afternoon, the Honorable Commissioner will be speaking to us on this topic to take us through what it entails to have your child or your ward transfer from any private to private school or from private to public school. So join me as I yield the floor to the Honorable Commissioner to take us through the discussion for today. Of course, we will be having questions and answers after his presentation. So, distinguished stakeholders, you are most welcome on board this afternoon for this webinar. Over to you, sir, Honorable Commissioner for Education, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akinleye. Let me welcome all of us to this afternoon webinar. Actually, it's the first one in the new year, and for us, it is a very good way to start the new year. If you remember, last year, this webinar we had spoke about the importance of LIN generation and the importance of having a seamless LIN generation. And if you remember, we highlighted some of the issues we have observed even with the LIN generation. However, this afternoon we'll be talking about inter-school transfer for private schools on the OGSERA digital platform. The reason for this is not far-fetched. For public schools, since we started about 3 years ago, we have also made the transfer module as one of the available modules on the OGSERA digital platform, because we want a situation whereby everything we do can actually do it without necessarily having human interference. In other words, we don't want um, anybody collecting physical forms, feeding forms, and taking it from one place to the other, or one table to the other. We have done that successfully for public schools. When we started, we felt that we should do it for all schools in Ogun State because all schools are actually under the supervision of the Ogun State Ministry of Education. However, you know, um, owners of private schools at times they are lethargic when it comes to innovations. But for us, we feel the right way to go is to make sure everybody is on board. Um, Naturally, for people who have private schools, you feel that because it's a private school, why do we need to bother about how learners move from one school to the other? But we have to bother about it because we actually regulate the operations of schools, right from inspection, approval, renewal, and standards. So for us to do our work to the fullest, we need to actually be interested in how students enter schools and how they move from one school to the other. And one of the most important things that the owners of private schools should realize is that it's going to give them opportunity to also see that people don't just move from their school to another school without probably taking care of whatever outstanding they might probably have. Because we have seen situations whereby um, parents will just move their children from one school to the other without necessarily settling their indebtedness to um, to the schools where they are living. So to make that one seamless, we actually believe that using the platform will bring him to place is a sort of discipline and a form of order. There will be order, and then there will be a sort of synergy between the the school where the learner is living and the school where the learner is going. So just like we do with the public schools, when a learner indicates interest in moving from one school to the other, there should be a process of release, and then there will be a process of accepting that learner in the new school. Now, I've mentioned the issue of learners having indebtedness to one school and then moving to another school without clearing that, because ordinarily we don't have any problem if anybody will want to move from one school to the other. But what we have observed is that learners at times leave schools because they are not able to meet up with their financial obligations. So for us, we feel this is not ideal and this should actually be discouraged. And the earlier we do this, the better for all of us. Also, we see that private schools also, part of the observations are the private schools also have problems adding new learners to the OGSERA digital platform. Um, this should not be. We feel that is something we also have to talk about. And some private schools request for LIM for learners who already have LIM. That's another observation. Learners that already have LIM, you see some private schools asking for LIM for them. At times it is fraudulent because they, they probably want to alter some data so that they will be able to generate a new LIN. But because we have removed the capability uh, of being able to generate LIN, we have removed it from the what part of the rights that the SPAs or even school owners will have. So now they have to apply to the ministry. And if you remember, we spoke about this in the last webinar we had. So now we now see requests from schools, private schools, asking that LIN should be generated for probably a learner that has just come to their school. Either they knew that that learner was coming from somewhere, or they pretend not to know, or they just feel that the ministry would also not know. So we are not going to be generating LIN for two LINs for one learner, because otherwise it will defeat the very purpose of having LIN. LIN are supposed to be unique numbers, and which lone learner should have two LIMs. So for us, we feel that the there is need to actually regulate this and ensure that we don't allow two learners to have two LIMs. So we feel that there is need to control movement of learners from one private school to the other, just like I mentioned. So if a learner is moving from one school to the other, we should know, because right now with the digital platform, we know which school each learner belong. So which school each learner is. If the learner is now moving from that school to another school, we should know. Not only that, we will now wait until maybe that learner will just surface again, maybe because they have onboarded that learner in another school. No, we should know that a learner is leaving one school and is going to another school. That gives us the complete story about every learner in the state, and that's very, for us, we have achieved that seamlessly in the public school sector. So and we cannot afford to leave the private schools behind. So we intend to ensure that there is control, and we intend to curb multiple LIN requests and generation. A situation whereby we see that a school will request for about 100 LINs, and when you go into it, you see that out of the 100, maybe 95 already had LINs before. It's only 5 that are new. Of course, even for those that are requesting LIN now, there is need for you to be sure that this learner is actually in an approved school before. If a learner just suddenly, if a school just suddenly requests for LIN for a learner that is in GS1, unless you want to tell me that that learner never went to primary school. If that learner went to primary school, then there must be an LIN that learner had from that primary school. So for us, we are not going to be generating LIN for any learner that is not at starting from from primary one, for instance, which is the immediate the first class that you enter when you get to school. And that is the point at which you'll be generating LIN. So if a learner is now in ES1, SS2, maybe primary 3, and so on, somebody is now making requests for LIN, we will not approve that. So because we believe that that learner should already have LIN. This is something we have been doing since the past 3 years. So we are now also using this medium now of this presentation to let every school, every private school, realize that the ministry is actually monitoring what is happening, even at the private school sector, to ensure that we know who is in one school and who is moving from one school to the other. The process of school transfer, we have done it seamlessly for the public schools. So what we are bringing on board is that when uh, you want to do inter-school transfer, even as a private school, the LIN of the learner is required. You need to have the LIN of that learner. Okay, this learner is coming from school A. So the LIN of the learner is where you start from. And then you will now initiate, the request. So the school will initiate the request for the learner that is actually requesting for transfer. So after you initiate the request, um, immediately that request is initiated, automatically the school where the learner is living will be notified. Immediately there will be a sort of alert to that school that this learner intends to leave your school. We are automating a process that will have been manual, whereby we say, okay, go and collect a form if you want to transfer from one school to the other. When you collect the form from the school you are going, you take it to the school where you want to live and let them release you from there. So you now take it back to the school you are going. So what we are doing now is it's going to be a virtual process, whereby you you initiate the request online, and then immediately you initiate the request, it will alert the school where you want to leave that this learner will want to leave your school. So when they get the alert, that school, the previous school that the learner is, will check um all their records. Is he owing us? Is there any problem? This and that. So once they check and they see that everything is okay, they will then release the learner to go ahead with the transfer. So When the learner is maybe allowed to go on transfer after the school will have been notified, then the process can then be completed, and there will be no issue at all. So LIN is required to apply for inter-school transfer, uh, and that the inter-school transfer to help address school learner indebtedness observed in private school. That is why we are bringing this type of thing on board, and we also want to curb LIN request, the multiple LIN request. You know what I've just explained in a broad manner. There will be a demo for you to actually see how it will work. So I'm going to yield the floor uh, to Mr. Adisa Thompson to do a demo for you on how inter-school transfers will actually be done. So, Mr. Adisa, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, distinguished stakeholders. Already acquainted with the processes of initiative transfer, as earlier said by the Honorable Commissioner. For schools who are admitting learner into their schools, and for every learner who is moving from one school to another, it is important to keep, to have the records, the academic history of these learners. This had been happening in the traditional system, and now it is being digitized. So, firstly, as earlier said, it is important that the school have the learner's identification number of the learner in which that the learner that sought the transfer. Without this, you cannot initiate transfer. And for us in the state, all our learners already have them. To learners who are at unapproved private schools, at the commencement of this program, they were equally permitted to liaise with approved schools to onboard their learners. So any schools who is admitting learners into their school should verify from parents, and most importantly, once that learner is coming from a school, inquire from the other school. And even with the way the portal is structured, there's no way the former school will not be in the known in this process. So, to business, I want to advise that LIN should be verified on the portal. The schools that is releasing the LIN should ensure that the LIN is copied from their portal to our schools. Most especially, this will affect schools that run both primary and secondary schools. We have learners that completed their primary school education and who are now in the in the private secondary schools. So for such schools, you don't need to request LIN to learners that completed primary six in your school. What do you need to do? You only need to log into your primary school portal, fetch the learner's LIN, the same LIN. As I always said, it is important to copy the LIN directly. So with my demo, I'll be using this school, for example, the same school that has learners who are going to their secondary school. So I'm opening the placement module of the just concluded placement exercise for last session. So I copy this link, for example. It's important the LIN is copied. So this LIN is obtained from the school that is releasing the learner. And so to the secondary school or primary school that is absorbing that learner, the secondary school will log into their portal. Once you log into our portal, at the left-hand side where we have the modules, click on enrollment management. The fourth button to that is student transfer private. Click on student transfer private. Once you click on that, it will open up the table for inter-school transfer for private schools. At this table are two tabs, inward and outward. Learners who are coming to your school and learners that are leaving the school. So for a school that's receiving learners into a school, you click automatically. Once you log in, it will take you to the inward transfer tab. At the extreme right side is a navigation button directly opposite the transfer icon here. Click on the navigation button, click on initiate transfer. As I said earlier, I copied my email, but the LIN, but if you are sure of the link, you can input the LIN on the make transfer table. So input the LIN. As it was said earlier, without link, there's no way you can process transfer for learners on private school transfer. Having input the link, click on search. Once you click on search, it will fetch the learner's information. This table is for you to verify it. I said earlier that you should copy the link. Peradventure, you might copy a wrong link. So having input the link here and click on search, when the information pop up, if the information is not that of the learner in which you are working on, you can cancel and then reinitiate. So, but if you are sure that is the lane, input the LIN and click on search. So the information appears here. If that is the line in which you are looking for, click on please confirm your details before you create an account. That I just explained. And then you click on yes, it's me. Once you click on that, it now allow you to create the application. And before you go forward, select the program in which the learner applied for. I've choose junior, then GSS1. Then you now click on create transfer. So you have initiated this transfer process on your portal. As earlier said, that immediately this process is done, the former school will be notified. So I'm moving to the former school. You move to the former school. So at the former school end, the former school will be verified, and the purpose of the process is to ensure that movement of learner from one school to another is monitored, and cases whereby learner are indebted to the former school, this will equally allow the school to get their funds. And if there are no cases of indebtedness, then the former school will allow the learners to move into the school. So once the request is initiated here, the former school at the action button, which is at the extreme end, so at the, this is still the receiving school. Hold on while I move to another school. Hold on, please. And for learners who are moving into private schools from public secondary schools, for example, a learner who is moving from GS1 into from at a public school to private schools, so it is equally accepted, and the same procedure applies. So I'm picking to initiate for another learner again. Then copied, information verified. Click on yes, it is me. In the class, you can see the learner current class is GS2. For example, if the learner is moving into GS3 in the new school, then click on create transfer. At the former school we move to a student transfer module. This is inward. So learners who are leaving the school will be displayed at the outward module. So this learner is moving from ACIA International Secondary School to be admitted into the Right Comprehensive College, Shagamu. So the process has been initiated at the school in which the learners applied. This is the dashboard of the inward transfer where the learners applied. And the other tab is that of the previous school which the learner attended. So the previous school, we click on the icon button, navigation button by this action, click on release student if it has been verified that the learner did not have any pending obligation in the school. And if otherwise, you click on decline. And I want to stress this. This measure is to ensure that learners' movements are adequately monitored, and schools are advised not to uh, deny learner without reasons. When these requests are initiated and the former school refuse to approve such requests, the ministry has prerogative power when it is proven that such learner is not indebted to that school to override the school refusal to release such learner. So that is the process to initiate the transfer of learners from one private school to another private school, or moving from one public school to another private schools. And as I said earlier, for learners who completed their placement exercise primary 6, who are moving to another class, the same procedure applies. And immediately this request is approved, the learner is automatically registered on the class registration for the current term. Immediately this transfer status changed to approved, the learner's registration is captured for that learner, and on the learner's class registration, that learner will be counted among the learner for the current term. So that is the procedure. Let me quickly shipping this to our private schools. It is important that we key into every procedure that are released, and every procedure, every assignment released out are timely based. This concerns the public the private secondary schools who are having the ongoing clearance, the WASEC clearance, many of us don't do what we are asked to do at the right time. And as such, all our learners are captured for first term 2023-2024 because we fail to promote those learners into the first term at the right time. So please, it is important we fix this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. To us. It's the basic education certificate examination or the school certificate. That is either the West African school certificate or the NECO school certificate. So um, we want everything to be done through the digital platform because we have the records of everybody on the digital platform. So as much as possible, we want transparency in the education sector, and we don't want malpractices um, through transfer. You find that a learner that has not been in any school will suddenly just surface in another school for transfer. That has been causing a lot of issues. So for us, we won't allow such to happen. Uh, let's see. How can we get LIM for a student coming from another state to join a private school? Not only to join private school, even to join any school for that matter. If anybody is coming from private school, sorry, is coming from outside the state, then the request will come, and we will have to confirm, we have to verify that that learner is actually truly from outside the state. For us now, we are not going to be just allowing somebody to just come up and say, this is a student from outside the state. No, the ministry will have to verify that this learner is actually from outside the state. So once a request is made to the ministry, um, in other words, if that learner is from outside the state, it means you will not be able to go to the platform to make any transfer. So you have to apply to the ministry. You have to um, get across to the ministry that you have a learner that is coming from maybe Zamfara State. So, and then you leave that to us. I will do all the processes before we allow you. That is left for us in the ministry. But I want to assure you that if you just think you can lie and say a learner is coming from Sokoto State, that we should allow him to come to school, to your school. It will not be as easy as that. So that is concerning that. So I hope that is well addressed. So we'll take other questions. I've already answered the one from Arogulo. The question from Zach Aziz from Creed Nursery and Primary School. How do we go this for students coming from other states? I've answered it. It's the same question. So the same question. I've answered that. So let's see if we have other questions. Uh, you can ask questions if there are things that are not clear to you. Okay, another one from Asizat Sonilawal. Good afternoon, sir. Please, can a student from private secondary GS2 now be transferred to public school? Now, we we have said that if you want to transfer, you will pass. As long as you are going to pass through the platform, we will we will see everything transparently. However, we won't allow uh, we don't even allow endless transfer. That is, in other words, the process of transfer starts at the beginning of the session. Even you would have started initiating it before the session starts. And we have a deadline for it. The deadline we always put is that, in fact, initially we said by the end of December of any year, we will have ended it, but we extend it a bit into the new year. But for now, for this year, it is closed. It is closed. So there is always a transfer window. This is always publicized, and we continue to make that put that information across. So let's see if we have other questions. And if I answer your question and you feel that it is not well answered enough, you can reframe your question, and I will look at it. Remy, Kenny, good afternoon, sir. What about unapproved private school that have not yet onboarded their learners? I'm not aware that there is any learner in an unapproved school. If a school is not approved, it's not a school. So if you have anybody who is in a school that is not approved, you yourself you said it's an unapproved school. So how is it a school? I don't have business with unapproved schools. If we give a window for people who are who have schools that are not approved by the ministry to either get themselves approved, in other words, process approval, or they go in through some schools that have been approved. So right now, it's not even possible to go to an approved school and try to onboard a learner through that school, because that school ought to have actually put that learner on its own list since maybe 2 3 years ago. So for us, if anybody is just coming from a private school, the easiest way for that person to get into a public school or to get into an approved school is to start from primary one. So even if that person is GS3, maybe we're gonna start from primary one. So that is the only way you can get it. How do we from PBAM TV? How do we generate LIN for new students in primary school when we are not aware of him or her having LIN or not? The parent as well are not aware of such. Can we generate LIN for such a student? If a student is starting from primary one, just coming to school for the first time from primary one, yes, we can generate LIN for that person. That is what those are students we consider as new students. But if a student is coming to maybe ES2 or SS1, that student is not a new student. He's coming newly to that school, but he should come with the LIN from the school he was before, if truly he was in a school recognized by Ogun State government. Adefilelo Temitayo, good afternoon, sir. How can a student from unapproved school get LIN? Perhaps the learner is in primary six. There is no way he can get. You cannot get LIN if he's in primary six, because for us, we have opened this thing. We left this thing open for over 3 years for you to onboard learners that are not uh, that are to onboard all learners. So how did that learner get to primary six since 3 years ago that we we have actually given opportunity for people to generate a line for them? So this type of cases will come up. I know it will come up. Then we'll have to address them one way or the other. And how it will be addressed, the people who have such cases will have to come to the ministry, and then you have to tell us the story of how that person got to primary six without a lie. Please, can we have this transfer process written and sent to approved club? Yes, we can. We definitely will do that. We'll put the process. Even this presentation, the demo, We'll also send it to the platform so that you can go over it over and over. And you can go as you are going through it. If you get to a point, you can pause it, practice that, go on like that, and so on. So we'll definitely make it available. And of course, this webinar is recorded. If you want to listen to it over and over, you can listen to it again. We'll get it across to you on the platform. So I hope that answers Mutual or definitely this question. Do we have other questions? Good evening, sir. What could have been the cause of false on name verification while generating LIN? Well, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think you can generate LIN yourself again. We have actually stopped that. So if you want to generate LIN, you have to send the request to the ministry. The request will come to us. The first officer will look at it, and then the next officer will look at it, and then it will get to the table of the honorable commissioner. What we have now is that it is not possible for you to just generate LIN for any learner. We left the platform open. So for those who have nothing to hide by now, if you have nothing to hide by now, you will have generated the LIN for all your learners. And for those who have students to present for school certificate, I don't know how you want to do it if that learner has not been on the platform before. We are in contact with, WAEC. We have discussed with them that any learner that is going to write school certificates must have LIN. So, and they have agreed with us. So we are going to be supplying them with the LIN of all learners that are going to write school certificates. So my advice is that if we have schools that are taking learners from anywhere, some people even take random sellers and they will just register them for WAEC and claim that they are from outside the state or something. It's not going to be business as usual. So we are trying to curb all these type of things. That is why. Any other question so that we can attend to it? Well, do we have more questions? If there are no questions, we will actually will be coming to the end of the webinar. However, let me assure you that it's not the end of everything. If you have questions, you can still ask questions. You can either come to the just you can send maybe a WhatsApp message, a text message on the platforms that we have. Uh, Answers will be provided. But this is an opportunity for you to listen to me and also watch the demo and then ask questions that has to do with this. So, but questions continue. You have opportunity to continue to ask questions even after this presentation and after this webinar. So, the way I see it, I think we have no more questions coming in. So, do we have more? Okay, let's see if we have more questions coming. The intention is to ensure that everything is done in a very transparent manner. Since we have decided to digitalize the entire education sector in the state, so we don't want anything to be done under the table, but even including uh, admission into schools and transfer. Cayman Abdul has the question, sir, how is it possible to generate LIN for out of school learners that is eligible for primary 3 class? I told you some of all these cases will have to be able to prove that it is like this. So these are not cases you can just sit down somewhere and now say you are bringing that student into school. So you have to actually come to the ministry, and then we can start from with the zonal office, and then we have we look into we look into the issue. So it will be each case will be treated on its own merit. So it's not just going to be something you can just bring anybody from anywhere to come and enter primary 3 or primary 4 or any other class or SS1. Good afternoon, Atoiba TV. Good day, sir. That question I've not read it. Okay, maybe to come back. Okay, but let me look at Okpale. Okay, there is traffic. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I believe it will be useful to have an operating manual to detail all this relevant discussion to be used alongside this portal. Please help me. Yes, we have said that. So definitely there will be a manual for you to look at it. So let's see other questions. Olulope Adetunbi, please sir, I would like to know if the option for transferring students to other primary 2 to primary 6 is available now. If the learner has LIN, it is closed now because the time for transfer has ended. So it will be available next year. So next session it will be available. Olufade Babatunde, Honorable Commissioner, sir, what is the place of OGSERA on out of school children? The place of OGSERA is to ensure that out of school children are also in school, but legally. We want to ensure that those who should be in school are the ones that are in school. You don't you don't smuggle learners into school in the name of out of school children. What people are doing is that they do all sorts of under the table process before. A learner that is not in school, somebody will just go and bring somebody who is a groundnut seller and say because the person is 15 years old, you now look at the class that a 15-year-old will be and say you want to bring that child into school. That is not the way to solve the problem of out of school children. We want to solve the problem of out of school children, but children that are coming to school should come to school properly. They should come to school in a legal manner. So malpractices is what we are trying to curb. We don't want a situation whereby in the name of solving out of school phenomenon, then we have people smuggling in learners into school. Parents are seeking to transfer because they want to move pupils from primary 4 to primary 6. Are we supposed to release such learners? They cannot. That you are just coming to the issue. You can see why we are digitalizing this process. We have parents who will want their children to leave school before spending the normal 6 years in school. That is not going to be possible. We are not going to. That's why people are just saying out of school children, this and that. You know, the real issue is that people want to practice some fraudulent things that they have been doing before. A child that is in primary 6 in primary 4 in a school, you say you want to transfer that learner to another school. If you are transferring that learner, you should go to primary 4. And if it is the end of primary 4, you transfer that learner from primary 4, end of primary 4, who is going to primary 5, you should go to primary 5. But because people know that you cannot, for instance, screening form, you have to actually be in primary 6 and then before you can obtain the form. So they now want to give double promotion. For us, even private schools, you cannot give double promotion. If you have to give double promotion in your school, the ministry will have to know about it, and we have to see that this learner is actually a genius that requires to move to actually omit one class and go to another one. So we are not going to allow a situation whereby a child will spend 3 years in school. You get to school at the age of 4, and then you will just do primary 1. Then you give him double promotion to primary 3. At the age of 5, he's in primary 3. You give double promotion again to go to primary 5 at the age of 6 or 7, and then that child is ready to go to secondary school. We are not going to allow that type of thing to happen in Ogun State. So if a child is in school and he enters the school, the normal age is actually 6 years. But we know some people put their children in school at the age of 5. Well, at least you spend 6 years in primary school. So that will take that child to 11. So normally it should be 12 years, but 11 or 12 is acceptable. So by the time you now spend another 6 years in secondary school, the child will be ready to go to the university at the age of 17. We won't at time take 16 in these public universities, but we won't allow all these under the table practices. Can we still do onboarding this second term if it was not done first term? Why was it not done first term? Why was onboarding not done first term? Well, it's just like saying that can you mark your students register in second term if you did not mark it in first term? What were you doing in first term that you did not mark the register? Where did you keep them that they were not onboarded? So all these things, if definitely people will have to come up with different issues that they will come to the ministry and we'll sit down and look at it. If we see the merit of what you are saying, then we'll solve the problem based on its own merit. So we are not going to be maybe harassed, or we are not going to be maybe um, cowed with all these sweet talks about out of school children, out of school children. If children are out of school and want to bring them to school, we bring them to school through normal channel. So I hope that answers the question. Yusuf for sure. Where a good day, sir. How long does it take to grant permission to request for LIN from the ministry? It doesn't take time. It doesn't take time at all. It is when we say something is online real time. It is only when you are requesting for LIN for somebody who has a LIN before. That's why it looks as if it's taking ages, because normally the thing will go through. But if the learner has LIN, it won't take time. In fact, part of what we actually want to do is to let you also have access. Immediately you make requests from there. I don't know if we have done that now. We intend to do that. Have we done that? Adisa, have we done that? We want them to know immediately you make a request for LIN and that learner already has a LIN. You yourself, you see it that this request is not necessary because the learner already has a LIN. That is what we are checking in the ministry. But we want to make it available for you that immediately you make your request, you see that that person already has a LIN. Have we done that? Yes, we are working on that so that immediately you see that this person you are asking for LIN for has a LIN. So I'm sure within the next 1 or 2 days, you definitely see that. Um, that will solve that problem. Okay, the question is gone. Okay, how do you about schools using a year ahead? What is a year ahead curriculum? Thereby trying to move another and refuse to stick to that. I don't understand that. That does not exist. It doesn't exist. There is nothing like a year ahead. There is nothing like a year. When a child enters school, you enter from primary one, and then you go through it up to primary six in Ogun State. You can go to other states. People have been doing it before, but for us, that is our policy. You enter school in primary one and you go through it to primary six and you graduate. The normal age for going to school from primary one is age six. But if people even manage to bring an age five child to school, that child will still spend 6 years in primary school. There is no year ahead, and I know that private schools are the most guilty about this. A child is in primary one, you say you are using basic two. A child is primary, you say, but what is that? The curriculum that we are running is uniform. Private schools have to do what public schools are doing. For us in Ogun State, we don't we don't know what we mean by a year ahead. There is no a year ahead curriculum. Other questions? And let me say that if people say that they have their own, that they are not ready to follow what we lay down in the ministry, the best way for that school is to leave Ogun State. Ogun State is very close to Lagos State. You can go to Lagos State and register there. You can go to Oyo State and register there. If the school is in Ogun State, that person will have to abide by the regulation. For us, the standard we are using is uniform, and that is what we want. Most of the problems we have in the education sector is because people are trying to cut corners, people are trying to bring in all sorts of consideration. And I want to tell you that there will be no private school that will be disadvantaged. If all private schools key into what government says, there will be no problem. It is when school A is doing the right thing and school B is not doing the right thing. If nobody is cautioning them, then you will now be losing patronage. That will not happen. What we are saying is that for us in the state, we are monitoring this, and we know most of the problems we have with malpractices, with all this illegal registration, WAEC, special centers, tutorial centers, success centers, emanates from even the process of admission into school and also the process of having children in approved schools. So what we are saying is that if anybody wants to be in the business of running schools, you should come forward to the Ministry of Education and tell us you want to run school, and we allow you to run school. The people will say that what about somebody who is trying to put money together? You cannot be trying to put money together to run a school. You are either running a school or you are not running. So if you want to start putting something together, come to the ministry for proper advice on how to go about it. So we were even looking at the process of transfer, approval, especially for those who call themselves unapproved schools. So they can come and ask us how they will go about it so that they will be registered and then they will get approved. There are minimum conditions that you have to satisfy. Once you don't have that condition, don't start school. When you have the condition, you start school. If all you can run is just a nursery school, run nursery school and leave it. You don't know that you want to run nursery, you want to run primary, you want to run secondary at the same time, and then you are running from pillar to post. So that's the point we were making. How do you? Okay, I think we have answered this question of a year ahead curriculum. Remedial redeemers nursery and primary school. I hope that is not what you are doing in your school. Please, let's have another question if there are other questions. Can we still generate LIN for nursery learners that are yet to have it? Are they in school? We said when the child enters school, immediately you enter school, you get LIN. So not that you generate LIN and then later on a child will be in school and then later on you will not generate LIN. Once you have your LIN, you use that LIN throughout. Good evening, sir. How do we admit pupils from approved school that didn't onboard their pupils and didn't generate LIN for their pupils? Yeah. Well, that once the child has no learner, learner identification number, there is no way you can admit that type of learner. So probably such cases should be escalated. It should be taken to the ministry for us to look into the case and find out where that learner has been for that he didn't have a line in the state. Next question. There is no LIN for nursery and primary school people since 3 weeks now, but their names are still on OGSERA platform without LIN. The question is not very clear to me. So I don't know. I decided if you understand this question. There is no LIN for nursery and primary people since 3 weeks. If that learner, yes, what class? What class? Is it primary one? Is that person just entering school? If it's a yes, if that person is just entering, not that LIN is not for everybody in primary school. If somebody is in primary 2 or primary 3, yes, yes, yes.
So definitely those people that they have LIN,
yes,
and they would have seen that when they go into OGSERA,
yes,
that one will be denied.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They will be waiting now to be approved.
It cannot be approved. It cannot be approved because where has that learner been? If you have a learner in primary 2 or in primary 4 or in GS1 and so on, and that learner didn't have a license since three years ago, how are we going to generate a license for that person? So I'm sorry, it doesn't actually work. But if you have issues with all this thing, LIN generation and so on, what I would advise is that you just approach, come to the ministry. So because the case is, or you send or you give a call, just call, so that you'll be attended to. Each case will be treated on its own merit. So do we have other questions? Can private schools that are having difficulty onboarding students on OGSERA platform do so now, sir? How do you want to have opportunity to do that? The time for onboarding was very open. It was clear. So if you want to onboard anybody on the OGSERA platform, you have to actually do it. Yes. So we cannot just leave everything open throughout the session. Definitely, if it's a new session.
They did not do what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
So now first time is closed.
Yes.
And they are now that they want to get approval for one.
Yes.
This is when they know now that they have
Well, I'm sorry. So if you where are those students? You see, some of the schools that are making this type of requests are schools that are trying to import learners into their school. Learners that were not in their school before. If that learner was in your school before, why was that learner not onboarded? Why was there difficulty in onboarding a learner that was in your school? So the learner you want to onboard now it means that learner was not in your school before. So it is difficult to do that. I'm sorry. Let's have other questions. Let's have other questions, please. Okay, what will the school do if the other school decline? The other school will not decline. But if they decline because it is possible, maybe because they don't want to release that learner from their school, they are thinking that the admission in their school is being depleted. You can escalate that issue to the ministry. We will definitely look into it and see whether there is any merit. You cannot tie somebody down to your school if he doesn't want to be in your school. We want to find out why is it that you don't want that learner to go. So you have to find out. So if you have such cases, the ministry will resolve it.
How can the government assist schools with students leaving SS2 to write WAEC? Is it a situation?
I said, how can government assist schools to solve the problem of students leaving
SS2.
SS2 to go and write either GCE or WAEC? That is one of the reasons why it looks as if we are coming with draconian law. You see, once we say you cannot get LIN in any class apart from the entry class, which is at the beginning, primary one or primary one, not even in SS, you cannot even get in GS1. Because if you are in GS1, you must have gone to a primary school before. So you must have your LIN from your primary school. So we are not going to allow anybody in SS2 to have LIN. You are not going to give LIN to somebody who is in GS3 because you must be coming from a school. So where is that LIN? And now we are not allowing schools to generate LIN on their own. So you cannot even generate to go LIN for folks. So it will not happen. Mubarak Ayinde, what did the school do? People that school, okay, we have answered that question. So any other question?
To skip classes, especially skipping primary 5.
If anybody is leaving your school from primary 4 and we want to go to primary 6 in another school, probably because you didn't allow, that learner will never be able to transfer. He will never be able to transfer. So, in fact, that will be your basis of decline. That is moving from primary 4 to primary 6, and the ministry will look into that. If they now request and say, this person did not release well, and we look at the reason. So we won't allow anybody to move from primary 4 to primary 6. Not again in Ogun State. So let's see if we have other questions.
Another question.
I have a question here. Good afternoon, sir. Please, most of our learners are from Lagos State without LIN. How do we generate LIN for them? Learner from Lagos State. We have to see where that learner is coming from. You make your request to the ministry. We'll go into that, and you'll be surprised how we will handle also those cases. We already have our template for handling people from coming outside from outside the state. Because what people do is that when they want to bring a learner illegally, they now say the learner is from outside the state. You don't worry. Make your request to the ministry. We will handle it. But definitely you will not be able to do it normally on the platform. Do you have other questions? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a convenient place to end this webinar. I want to thank you very much for attending the webinar. And I want to assure you that we'll continue to do things that will make the education sector better in the state. We want to continue to be in the front burner as the educational leader in Nigeria. The state is the education capital of Nigeria. And for us, all these things we are doing is still in the realm of being the first. And we are trying to curb all sorts of malpractices and so on. So we don't want a situation whereby we say will be the dumping ground for all sorts of things that are not actually right. And then I assure you that we continue to attend to your questions, to your issues. You can get across to us on WhatsApp and on the various platforms that we have. And you can call. You can call all numbers, our numbers that you know, or you can come physically to the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology. If you are in Abeokuta and you want to come to the headquarters, you are free to come and you will be directed to the appropriate officer. If it's from the zones, go to the zonal education officer. I'm sure they will be able to attend to you. But if they are not able to solve the problem, they will escalate it to the right officer at the headquarters and it will be attended to. So once again, I want to thank you for attending this webinar. I'm sure it has helped us to clear a number of issues, and it is also a step in the right direction at moving education forward in Ogun State. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you so much, sir. Distinguished stakeholders, I want to express our gratitude to the Honorable Commissioner for taking time out of his tight schedule to talk to us today on the issue of transfer of students on the OGSERA digital platform between private school and public school. It's been a wonderful afternoon, and we want to assume that we have learned a lot of things today, and some of our fears has been allayed. So we want to appeal to you once again that in case you have any other question or further clarification, you can contact us through the various platforms or through the zonal education offices, and we can assure you that all your questions and queries will be attended to. Until another time when we're meeting for this webinar, we want to wish you a very successful 2024 second term session, and we pray that God will be with us till we meet again. Thank you and God bless.